Good morning, everybody. My name's Lee. Yeah, right camera. My name's Lee. Um, this is ArtCAD, and we're here for another demo. It's good to see you, for all the people joining in. Kind of have a little chit chat to begin with. Let everybody arrive and say hello. When you do arrive, do say hello in the chat bar on the right hand side. It's good to know who's in the room. Ask any questions you want that are art related. This morning I have a mad little cat running around, so excuse me if I get a little bit distracted at some stages because it's going absolutely nuts on the floor right now. Today you can still see I've got, there we are, still got the picture of Desiree up on the screen. My intention was to get this one finished during this week, but it's been really hectic, really busy. So I'm going to continue on. Michael, you just worked out how to share it on Facebook. Thank you for sharing. It's taken me a while as well to get it all sorted out, how to flick between one social media platform and the next. So yeah, sympathies for you on that one. But thank you very much for sharing, really appreciate it. So good morning to you. Hope your drawing's going well. This is something that you can draw along with. You can take a screenshot and draw a picture of Desiree yourself, or you can be working on your own artwork. And if you have any questions related to your own artwork, you can ask them here, and hopefully we can answer some of the problems or issues you're having with your drawing. Good morning, Desiree. So you can see I'm still drawing you. My intention was obviously to get it all finished and done. You can see over on my drawing cam, because of my lovely kitten Inky destroyed my iPad, I've gone back to the old style of the way I used to do things, so it's actually a little bit more functional, to be honest with you. So you don't need, she's banging the camera already. So you don't need massive amounts of technology. If you can get something printed off on a page to draw where you're drawing from, say it's a still life or something like that, if you're not drawing from life, and you can get your photographic reference, always have it right beside the drawing that you're working on. So you can easily translate the image that you're looking at to your drawing directly. Now I had it set up with my iPad on the right hand side, so I was able to sort of flick between one and the other. There are limitations with the screens, sometimes with the platforms, so the functionality of the iPads and things like that. If you touch them or zoom in, it's very hard to remember to zoom back out so you can get a consistent reference. Obviously old school style with a piece of paper. My cat is about to knock everything off a shelf. Don't know if you can hear all that. She's just running around. I'll let her destroy it. So yeah, sometimes if you're zooming in and zooming out and you forget to zoom back out, everything is kind of magnified. So when you're drawing, you start to get a little bit chasing a bit of paper, get a little bit disorientated with scale. And working from something that's consistent like a piece of paper, you don't have those issues, and this also means most people have access to a printer of some sort. If not, there are plenty of places around that can still print things off for you, and you can work from that. It's a little bit more functional. What you can do is you can get several prints done. You can get one that is very dark, one that is very light, and a medium one, so you've got maybe three. So you can get like a tonal reference to work from. The one I have up here is kind of mid-tone. I know that the reference picture that was sent by Desiree is a little bit darker. So I know that this is just helping me, again, find tones, find details, find shapes, etc. And then I can darken down as I feel suits best. And that gives you that kind of creative flexibility. You don't need to be a slave to your photo reference. If you're trying to have something that's representational and looks like that image that you want to work on, you have to keep to the proportions. Whoop, maybe just to let you know, here's Inky. Maybe you can see her on the screen there. It's so wide-eyed, and she's just so excited to be here this morning, aren't you? Are you going to sit down and be quiet? Probably not. I'm just trying to keep her off the keyboard, because otherwise she'll start typing messages. Yeah, you can go down there. So yeah, so I'm going to continue with this picture today. Again, apologies for not having this done already. It's been a really fun week. It's been a very busy week. Those of you know I'm also an art technician in school, so we're all back in the classes again. So hello to anybody who's watching from school I work in, and all the teachers are working really hard to kind of normalise the situation that we're all in, and we're getting there. And the kids have been great, they've been fantastic, and so it's going to be different for everybody getting back into the swing of things. Things are starting to move forward a little bit, and we just have to be safe. Obviously, keep washing your hands, keep sterilising, keep wearing your mask. But one of the benefits about doing it on YouTube is you don't have to wear a mask, and you're at home, so you're a safe little bubble. So yeah, it's kind of nice to see. Well, you can't see sort of each of everybody's people in the class, but it's kind of nice to see a human face not hidden behind a mask again. So we'll continue with this today. If you've got any questions or anything like that, ask away. Here's a great place. I want to say a quick thank you to the Art Centre, because they've been posting up videos of everybody who works in the Creative Peninsula in the creative industries. Camera's just switched off again. They put a call out and asked us to create little videos of our studio settings and do kind of like a little minute or two video, just to give you sort of an insight to what our surroundings are and what we think and what we're like. A lot of us do classes down at the Art Centre here in Newton Ards in Northern Ireland, and it's a great resource, not just for the artists but for the community at large. People who want to try out things that they may have wanted to do for a long time, like painting, drawing, ceramics, jewellery making, lots of different activities going on. And I dare say wherever you are based, there will be a centre of sorts, something like that around, and if you can, go and try and support them. The classes were cancelled because of COVID, but they are hoping to start them back up again. So they produced this range of videos to celebrate what we had here was called the Creative Peninsula, and we sort of celebrated it every year of the creative talent that's around. And I must say we're very lucky here where we live. We have an amazing amount of talented artists and artisans and crafters who are working continuously on their own work and pushing the boundaries about what they do. And as we all work in isolation in our home studios and things, it's hard to promote ourselves outside of our sort of own unique little art world. And just having that resource like the Art Centre promoting it for us and putting up these videos, it's been really interesting because I've been watching all the other artist videos as well, and I've been learning things from people I've known for a long time, and I get to see them in their own studio and get a new appreciation for the dedication and the quality in their work as well. So they're really interesting. So I'm going to pop a quick link up. This is the link up to my video, but there are lots of other videos I would suggest go and watching as well. Basically anything I've said over the last few weeks in ArtCat you've probably heard already on that you'll see in the video, so I'll pop a quick link up to that as well. First of all, sort this video out. Let's say it's the normal weekly issue with this camera. Not much I can do about it, unfortunately. Not yet, anyway. There we go. Just slowly get that back up. So good, that's done. Go back to this bit now. So if I get out of this screen, and because I had this all set up to copy and paste the link because I've been so organised. Not. There we go. So grab that link and see if this works. Hopefully you'll be able to just click it and it'll be able to hopefully open up another window for you and you can watch it at your leisure. So if I just stick this in here. So this is the video for the Art Centre. It's only a minute or two long. They're not long, expansive videos. But yeah, have a look through them. And if you're not in this locale, you're not in the area of Northern Ireland or North Down, do check out what's in your area, what's going on, because things are starting to happen now. Slowly the doors are opening, and lots of safety precautions in place for classes and things starting up or events opening up. But we will need support from the general public when they do. And it's mostly that these things are like exhibitions, etc., that you can go to along for free, or it'll be a small fee, or the art classes are normally heavily subsidised. There's not out of the realms of going to and experiencing these classes. So fingers crossed, we get information on when these are all going to start up again soon. Until then, we've got this. Okay. I was going to do this week, I remember chatting about it this week because I was going to have this finished, doing a little drawing exercise on doing eyes and noses and mouths and things like that, and some of the issues I may have about them. And the gentleman who asked for that was Alex, and he sent me a little message and he couldn't make it this week, but we will catch up watching this at some stage. So don't worry, Alex, you haven't missed it. It's going to happen probably next week, and I will try again to get this done if I don't finish it today, so we can go into doing that next week. And then the following week we're going to start a new portrait of a lady called Leslie, who sent a portrait through for this piece of artwork, which celebrates kind of COVID, not celebrates COVID, kind of captures the kind of whole experience. I don't know how to explain it, but it's little portraits of everybody who has kind of joined ArtCat through that period of time. So if you are interested in being part of it and you want your portrait to be in this piece of artwork, you can send a selfie picture to me on my Facebook page, Lee Boyd Artist, and yeah, I'll have a look at it and see if we can pop it in. So yeah, I've had the 4 so far, so once Leslie's done, I'm going to be waiting for the next one. So yeah, send it through, so that'd be great. So who else have we got in the room? We've got 3 people watching. Then we've got Desiree and Michael. There's normally kind of a delay and a few more people kind of drop in as we go along. So as you say, if you are here live, say hello. And if you are watching this and catch up and you just want to type something, you can still type some messages into the message bar and I'll get notifications and I can check them that way as well. I have my coffee. This morning it is brought to me by, I don't know if you can see that in the small screen, if you go to the big one, by Just Add Coffee and an Instant Human. I've needed a lot of coffee this week. So yeah, there you go. I'm going to switch back over to a different screen for myself here so I can see what I'm doing. Good. Still got this really annoying cough. It's not COVID. I've been tested. I'm totally fine. But yeah, but it's still kind of rattling around still. So apologies if I cough halfway through. So I'm going to carry on with the portrait this week and carry on from where we were. I have noticed that the face that I'm working on the drawing is still too light, and I still need to put more on as layers. So I'm actually going to start off by doing what I would call I call it a wash, but there's no water involved. It just means a whole covering of graphite over the entire area. I'm going to slide that picture a little bit to the left, just so I can get some space around the actual drawing itself. So underneath there, we've got Alex and Kathy sitting there patiently. Yes, you guys sent some lovely messages on that video as well as some people posted up underneath the Arts Art Centre video. I want to say thank you for your kind words because they do actually mean an awful lot. So if you want to share ArtCat, please do. I'm more than happy for you to do so, because the more the merrier, I say. And it's really nice to build up a community of like-minded people working in a similar vein. We're all learning still. I'm not really different from you. I might have a bit more experience, but I'm still in that sort of playful stage with art, and I think that'll always kind of stay with me in my process. One of the interesting parts of doing this is I've realised how much it is important to me as my process to share what I do and how I do it, because it informs me and keeps me sort of fresh to the way I look at my work. This has been a very helpful kind of experience and process to talk about my work and also demonstrate some of the techniques, because even as I'm doing them, I'm kind of going, how can I improve? How can I change that? How can I explain it better? How can I develop the qualities of my work? So it's one of those things that the constant reviewing of your work, and this is one of the more difficult aspects because it's really subtle, I think, for artists starting off, is not to be overly harshly critical to what you're doing. You can be honest and you can see your work for what it is, but it's not to judge yourself. What you're doing is analysing your work, not judging it. You know, that's terrible, that's bad. You're using a more constructive process where you may see areas that need development and go, okay, that needs to be a better proportion, or my tonal work needs to be more refined, and those are the little elements that you can then start to work upon to develop your drawing as a whole. And you can work on them through different exercises. I don't know if you can hear my cats now attacking each other in the background. Inky is terrible. She's just attacking everything at the minute. I think she's going through kind of a rebellious teenage years, even though she's only a few months old. But she is hilarious. Unfortunately, she keeps us jumping on the older cats, and the older cats don't know what to do because they're all quite chilled. So you just hear, it sounds like they're murdering each other. They're not. Inky just ends up jumping on their backs and sitting on them for a while, and the other cats are just going, wow. That's home life right now, is screaming cats. So yeah, that's quite a lot. I've been doing other things as well. Working on another project, which has been fun and really exciting. I can't really go into that, unfortunately. It's one of those horrible teasers. But it's taken a lot of time this week, and oh, here's Inky again. As you can see if we can get to stand up. Oh. Or maybe you're going to go to sleep, that'd be even better. Right. So let's say what I'm doing right now is just putting a wash of graphite all over the drawing, and I'm doing it very lightly. And you can see that I'm holding the pencil back at the very tip, and I'm trying to lay down a very flat coverage. Now, one of the exercises that you may want to try out yourself, don't jump up on the drawing, stay there. One of the drawing exercises you might want to try she's trying to grab the pencil, thinks it's a game, is to get a piece of paper and about where are we? Yeah, about sort of an inch and a half wide, something like that. Get a long strip and fold it into sort of 10 equal squares, and then open it back up and put it in a curve shape. If I can maybe grab a little piece of paper, what I mean is if you, this little demo, so you grab a piece of paper like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can do it with pair scissors, take more time over it. If you fold a piece of paper, I'm only going to do a few squares on this one. Inky's now eating the headphone cable. So if you fold a piece of paper backwards and forwards like this, so you have a concertina effect like that, and you can set that in a curve shape around like that. What you get is all of these different planes. Now, can you see that this one, I'll put you in a larger screen for a second, that this one is darker than this one, but this one has a darker bit down here. Set that up in front of you and try and draw the tones. So all you're drawing is the tones of each square, and it's a good exercise because it's the subtlety of light changing, because this is still the same piece of light white paper, but what this does, it starts to show you how important tone can be to creating the illusion of depth or solidity, or a curvature of something, or how light can change or fall from a light to a dark. So it does, as I say, it doesn't have to be perfect, and you can get a lot of information on that small piece of paper. So as a drawing exercise, what I would do is try and copy this and work out where does that light go, where does the dark go, because you're not trying to draw a thing, and that takes away some of the complications and frustrations about drawing a proportion of a cup or a person or whatever it may be, and break it down just to a simple form. Once you build up those techniques or those the visual kind of understanding of what you're looking at, you're able to transfer the almost muscle memory of putting graphite down on paper, how to be subtle with tone, how to build tone up, and you take that experience and you can then apply it to anything that you're drawing. And so it's a very, very simple exercise, but you can take your time with it and do several of them, and you can play around with your different pencils. So there's no rules as in, oh, I'm only allowed to use an HB on this one and a 2B on that one. You can flip between the two and use the pencils that best suit the tonality of each individual square. And you can also see highlight or lighter areas as well, how you might render those. Do you put a layer of graphite down and go over with your rubber to lift some of the graphite off and then reapply and then lift off, and to get the sort of gradients and things like that. So it's a very, very simple exercise, and it's a free exercise because most people have bits of paper lying around and it's easy to bend into shape. Set it into a place and just do it for an hour, and it doesn't matter if it moves, because the next time you do it, try it again. So you're not trying to draw the same piece of paper, but you're gaining the experience of what is light, what is dark. Often the darks are not as dark as you think. They're not as black as my t-shirt, say, for example, but some of the subtle greys in between are the most important elements of toning, because they're the link between the very dark and the very light. The very dark is easier to get because you use a very, very dark pencil. Very light is easy to use because you can almost use the white of the page. But it's the sort of tones in between. So as a member to drawing exercise, and you might struggle to begin with how to lay down flat tone, but as you have gone through the exercise, you start to figure out how the pencil feels on the page, how you can best hold the graphite in your hand to achieve the tonal aspect that you want. So say I'm just holding the pencil way back, swap it to the camera, here we go, and laying over the graphite. Good question there. The wash you're doing now for the background, I'm using fine charcoal. I have a jet black background. Any advice? Any difference to the graphite? If it's a black background and you've got the tonal elements over the top of that, with graphite it transfers very easily, more so than graphite. And I would still, if you're working with say a range of charcoal pencils, for example, Generals do a great one, and they have the harder graphite, charcoal pencils into the softer ones. I would still work doing a soft tone all over first and then build up your darknesses. Very similar process to the way we're doing it here. We're not jumping straight into the blacks. If you're jumping straight into the black straight away, you might find some of the darker surroundings of the image might start transferring over to some of the light areas that you don't want it to go. So you can almost earmark out that that is going to be a dark area. Say for example it was around here that this was black. I wouldn't necessarily go straight in and put that in as black. I would work out the proportions of the face and then maybe do the lighter wash all over, because it won't matter to this area in the background if there's a light wash on it. But if this is all black, you might find some of the light areas, just because of the nature of charcoal, might start to transfer over, or if you're moving your hand across, or if you're doing lots of different layers, etc. Might start to muddy or darken down an area that you want to stay light, and you have to keep going back in over it and cleaning it back off. And over a period of time, that might start to kind of destroy the surface of the paper a little bit. So I would still work light to dark with charcoal. Start off with your lighter grade charcoal pencils, build up placement, then you can work out shapes of shadows and then darken those down a little bit, and then you can then see for yourself and adjust. Oh, maybe the whole thing needs to be a tone darker, and then go back over it again with a charcoal pencil and build up the layers of charcoal. You don't necessarily have to press hard to build up your tone. It may be just another light layer over the top of a light layer creates that tonal depth. Charcoal over charcoal gets a little bit darker, pencil over pencil gets a little bit darker without adding pressure to the pencil. So hopefully that helps a little bit. As you build up the area, you can flatten it down in graphite by going over it with a fine brush, and you can do a little bit the same with charcoal as well, but it will transfer an awful lot quicker. You can almost block areas out of that's going to be darker, and you can block them in. Say for example, this part of Desiree's hair here is a little bit darker, and this we drew it all out. You can maybe go up a grade or two in pencils and darken the area down so it is darker, but maybe not as dark as it's going to be at the end. You can also use pan pastel. I had some there. I've got some in my drawing box behind me. Pan pastel, which is a compressed pastel powder, and you can use these little sponges, and this like the sponges on a palette knife almost, and you can use those to kind of draw in the shapes and darken areas down. So it's a very, very sort of quick process of blocking in, and then you can go back in and refine it, and then break edges down to have that sort of transition between a dark to a mid-tone to a light. But play around with it, experiment with it, and still do that drawing exercise. Do it in charcoals as well. Do it on a big piece of paper, so you're not trying to do it all tiny to begin with, just so you can build up your experience on how to lay down a tone. So that might help you, fingers crossed. Try it and see, let me know what you have, if you have any problems with it. Maybe you could do a drawing exercise just doing that one thing. So yeah, I'm just looking at how, especially over the face here, how subtle this light change is from light to dark. Inky is now on the table, I can see it out of the corner of my eye. So if this, oh, she jumped on to my knee. I had a worry there, she's going to start jumping on the keyboard, switching people, or switching YouTube off. So again, this is really subtle. I'm probably not really registering on the screen, but there is a tonal difference here in front of me. And I want it to be as subtle because I've got then control over maybe just applying a little bit more. I don't know if you saw that. This is where you shouldn't work with animals, but I do love her. She's kind of got away with, look, dirty paws over everything now, look. She's adding her own marks to the artwork. Yeah, working with animals can sometimes be a bit of a trial, but she's only a little cat. She's just having fun. So it seems terrible to kind of get way cross with her. Nobody seems to get cross with her. I don't know if that's setting a precedent to make her an unruly kitten into an unruly cat. Trying to teach her, but it doesn't seem to be working very well. So there we are. I think it's because she also just wants attention half the time. So even with that mistake that Inky created, it's easy to rectify, nothing to get too worried about. We get very fearful over making mistakes in our drawing, and even that little demonstration there just means, okay, how do you get around it? What do you need to do? And in that case, it wasn't too hard, and we was just able to rub it out a little bit. Because you will make mistakes in your drawing, and as I say, if you make that part of your process, that they're not mistakes, they're just developments in your drawing as you're doing it, you can combat any issues that you're having, whether something's too dark, too light, or how certain tones are working against other tones. Maybe you've gone in too dark, how can you lift that graphite off? Maybe you need to do another layer of pencil and you're scared to ruin your drawing, and therefore it stays too light. Do you know what I mean? When you're doing sometimes drawings, like it is at this stage, it's much too light and delicate, and it needs to have some more depth and tone and solidity to it to add more graphite to it. But people get scared at this point and go, oh, I like the shape and I don't want to ruin it that far, I'll just leave it like it is. And it always feels like it's slightly faded, or they've only used one pencil and they've stuck that one pencil all the way through because they've kind of got used to using that pencil, and everything's in that HB range of tone, and there's no real dark and there's no real light, and it's kind of grey, a mid-tone grey picture. And you think, oh, just adding that little bit of depth, adding that little bit of light would bring this portrait alive. But at the minute it's kind of flat, a bit flat, and you want to create that life to it. Just get down here, stay there. So I'm talking to the cat. She will hopefully just fall asleep in a minute. So yeah, and I'm not rushing this. Just taking my time to go over the whole surface. I don't want to have any pencil streaks in it. I want to build up the tone. See in this background here. The background here on the right hand side is lighter than the top and the hair. But there is definitely graphite. There is a tone to it. And at the minute, the white page is kind of throwing out my tonal aspect to the face. So if I only did the face without looking at this background, it could seem a bit like it's cut out and stuck onto a white page, and that's okay. Sometimes, you know, that's some of the isolation that you want for the image to be on, to have that kind of focus. I've done it myself with some of the manimal drawings where it's just the manimal on a white page, because I want the complexity to be about the manimal itself, and I don't want the background to be a distraction. On other pieces I've created a whole scene, so the background is about the environment, about where these people are sitting, that the environment is important, it's part of the portrait, if you know what I mean. It's kind of it's adding to it, the surroundings add to the portrait. So on some I might just leave a lighter tone to give you a focus on the figure. Others add a background to it, so it adds sort of context to the figure. Sometimes it helps you find a scale, because when you're looking at the picture, say for example online, when you look at the picture online, you won't have a sense of how big that person is within inside their environment, and you can play around with those things. You can, if like, let's say if you have a particular concept or a narrative that you want to create, you can intentionally make the person huge in a scene, or make them tiny, and you've kind of made them smaller than they would normally be, because they might feel overwhelmed by an environment, or they feel like they're more in command or knowledgeable about their environment, so they might appear bigger. So you can play around with these things, and it is subtle, and this is where the poetry of art blends with the production of art. The actual process of creating art should go hand in hand as to why you're creating the piece of artwork, and you can develop that conceptual side as well. Concepts in artwork are an addition. It's an important element to understand maybe why you are doing things in a certain way, and it can give you a guide as well as to how you might go about doing something. There's the other cat meowing in the hall. I don't think you probably might just pick that up on the microphone. That's Loie. She's deaf and she can't hear herself, and she's got this amazingly loud meow. There we go. I'm just going to finish this off. So just taking your time with it, kind of relaxing into it as well. Not panicking, not rushing, because you're getting towards the end and you just want to get it done, and the final little bit might be a quick flurry just to get it finished, and therefore there might not be enough graphite on it. So as much focus as you have when you start doing this, you need that same focus at the end of doing it as well. And don't rush. Just take your time. I'm going back over this top, because the top is a lot darker. I'm not adding any more pressure, but just laying this graphite over the top of it. The graphite was already down there, automatically darkens it, and it's a slow addition. And it's a bit like, you know, the old, some of you remember the old black and white TVs, some of you won't. Some of you even won't know what a black and white TV is. But there used to be a dial on the TV for contrast, and you could turn it up and turn it down. And it's similar to what we're doing here. We're kind of just slowly notching one notch by one notch, adding a layer by layer until we get to the depth that we want. You can get a hole punch, or in my case, I'm just going to stab a hole through a piece of paper. Very technical. Again, some of the processes and techniques I use are just something I've done over the years because I just wanted to find a solution to it. So there's this little hole here. If I place that over the portrait, you can see how dark this area is. And what you can do is you can practice that right beside it and try and get the same tonal quality on your page as a drawing exercise. So you're not actually trying to draw the thing, but you're just trying to draw the tone and then judge, is that too dark or too light? I think mine's a little bit too dark on there. I'll try it again. It's the same pencil. I'm not really putting much pressure on it, and I might find, okay, the pencil that I'm using isn't dark enough, or maybe I need to go over that whole area lightly twice, gives me the right tone. Putting too much pressure on it initially once was too dark, but maybe twice with a light application is the right tone. So it's a really subtle thing, but you can figure out then, okay, I know I need to go over that area twice with a light application of pencil to get that tone that I want. And then it gives you a sense of control that you can achieve the depth of graphite yourself. You know that and how to do it. I don't even think I got half an hour out of that click for that camera there. Switch itself off again. Maybe I did. Maybe half an hour just flew by so quick. Let me see if I can get this back on. So you tell me, how's your week been? What have you been up to? What are you drawing at the moment? Are you still drawing a picture from last week? What issues are you having? You're not having any issues, and it's all going wonderfully, which would be great. I always like that when that happens, where you just get lost in the drawing and everything seems to be working, and it feels like a picture is drawing itself. It's just the best feeling ever. So you can see there, I was using a little guide to figure out what tone that is for the background. Then I can go over to my reference drawing and go, oh wow, you can see that my background is way lighter than that background. Or Desiree's top is a whole lot darker than what I have. Now in comparison, this starts to look a lot darker than this, but we know it's not dark enough. So I then go, okay, I just need to put more graphite on it. And it's that to and fro process. And if you make the process go, oh, is it that simple? Yeah, it is that simple. It's that easy step. And it's easier to see, does this need to be lighter or darker? It needs to be darker. I put another light layer of graphite over the top of it and see what it does. Is that dark enough? No. Okay, maybe I'll go up a grade of pencil, put that on. Go up a grade of pencil, put it on. Is that dark enough? Just a touch lighter. Okay, I'll go up again with another layer of pencil. And as I say, it's like slowly turning up that notch on the dial. You're slowly adding tone on top of tone to get the tone that you want, because it's very easy to see by using that kind of whole process. It's a very easy contrast. Is it dark or too light, rather than being overwhelmed by the entire image and trying to see an individual tone. Sometimes just isolating it helps a little bit. And that's the same for charcoal as well. You know, both my cats are playing with each other now, down on the floor, meowing at each other. It's like they haven't come into this room all week, and then as soon as I start doing the live broadcast, they're like, oh, they all want to play. They all want to come in and play. Oh dear, that was a little quick slurp of coffee. These are just growling at each other, sound more like dogs than cats. So, yeah. sure I get the right screen. Just so I can see what I'm doing on screen. There we are, that's better. Good. Yeah. So, where was I talking about the top? So I know that this top is a little bit too light, and I can add more tone onto that as well. This is where, remember, we kind of set the proportions out and things, so we drew these lines in where things are. Those lines will start to be absorbed into the tone that you start to put down, but you know where the tone needs to go up to because there's a line, there's an edge, but we haven't drawn dark heavy lines around, we put light lines in, so we know where they're now to maybe stop the layer of tone that we're putting down because we have an edge to draw up to and around. It's a bit like colouring in, but you're building up your tone in those areas, and eventually the lines get absorbed into the tone and you're just left with the image of what it is you're drawing. Now you can, obviously this is just the style of this particular drawing. You might want to accentuate the lines around things to give it a more graphic feel, and that might be a part of your artistic process, your artistic flair. It could be an addition to your concept as to why you're doing something, but in this instance, I want that kind of representation picture, and there are no lines going around the image. There's no lines going around the hair, there's no line going around the body. It is the top we're drawing, so I know that this area also needs to go dark. There is a dark line here which might be the right tone for the entire top. It's quite dark, but as we noticed when I put that hole over the top of it, it was way too light. So as if I start to darken this whole area down, and you can do this. Why did a wash over the whole area? You can then isolate it down, just do wash over smaller areas. And just slowly build that up. Then also when you can sort of just looking at this small area over the top, you can see that this area is darker than this bit, and there's a little dark area here, a little dark area here, but this is lighter in general than this area. So I know then that I can pay attention to the shapes of that tone, just like the shapes of the shadow. And in a way, this is a shadowed area because it's just going back over the back of the shoulder, down over the top of the shoulder, and it gives you an idea that there's a continuation of the form of the figure. And it's really subtle, but people often kind of ignore the bits around here and just concentrate on the eyes, nose, mouth, and it's everything else that'll add to the portrait and support to give your portrait a physical presence and a life to it as well. You've got a new pup called Lulu who's as lively as Inky. Yeah, I wonder if they ever met what the world was. They'll probably take over the world. But she's absolutely into everything. She's gone for a teething things at the minute as well. So she's like trying to chew on doors, and she's got a fascination with bits of paper and little. Andrea's does a lot of card making, and there's like all these little things she uses for card making, and she just steals them and runs around. So every now and again we find this little collection pile of art materials. Luckily enough, she hasn't wandered off with a pencil yet. She has knocked over things on my drawing table, including my iPad. But then again, you know, maybe that was my fault for leaving it out. She's a cat after all, she doesn't know. So you can't. It's frustrating, but you can't get angry with them. Then they just look at you with those big eyes and you think, oh, you're so cute. So again, this might feel achingly slow, but if you're just taking it bit by bit and you're going to concentrate on the thing that you're doing and not about time, like it's easier to concentrate on just darkening down this small section, not worry about everything else, because we've worked out the proportions already. So I know if I only work in this small area, I know I'm going to be okay. It's not going to affect the overall proportion of the picture. Changing gears now behind the drawing board. This is just light application on top of a light application, so this is just, I think it is just an HB pencil in this. But already it starts to give me a lightness to this area. I don't know if you can see that. It's just a sort of application of pencil, and it's the same for the face as well. Look, when we're looking at here, you can see that this whole area is darker. So I can do a whole wash over this side of the face. And there's little bits here that are highlighted, so I can start to follow the form shape of that. As Andrew's keeping them distracted now for me, I think. There. So I've left a small area out here. You might be able to see if I just zoom in. Again, you're looking at it slightly of an oblique angle, so it may have kind of narrowed the drawing a little bit. But you can see there's a subtle difference between this part. There's a small highlight here. I'm not going to worry about it too much as I start to put this down, because I think what I can do is I can just gently touch that with a rubber or a razor and lift off little elements of graphite as well. And then we go this down here. Then we go back up, darken this area down. So as you look into a dark area, you can, it's a bit like going into a dark room. You go into a dark room to begin with, and everything's black, everything's dark. And over a small period of time, your eye adjusts, and you get to see subtle nuances of light in a dark room. And then you spend 5-10 minutes in there, and then you can see lots of things. And it's very similar to when you're drawing a dark area, everything just looks dark to begin with. But as you spend time looking at it, you can start to see subtleties in it. Subtleties in the darkness. And it's the same for the light. You look at a light area, everything just seems light. And then you start to see little nuances of tone and shadow. If you flip one to the other, you're constantly walking in and out of a dark or a light room, and it's very hard to see all of those subtleties. So if you can spend time looking at an area, you can start to map areas out of shape, of tone, and apply those, and see the subtleties of how light maybe transition from light to dark. That might be a soft transition, a very gentle transition. So gentle transition here would be from this dark area to a lighter area here, and there might be a darker line shadow, which is just the curve of maybe an eyelid or something like that, which is quite thin but quite intense in contrast to the surroundings. So this is a darker line that appears to be just a line shape, but it still might have softer, fluffy edges. It's not crisp. It's a darker line, but it's not crisp. So you start to visually build up that language of how hard or soft should you be. Using the verbal description is an indicator of how you should actually apply your graphite to the page. This is soft and fluffy, this is light and delicate, this is harsh and dark. And then maybe it'll inspire you to use graphite in that way on your reference picture. As I say, it's not necessarily just being a slave to the image and trying to do a hyper realistic image of what you're drawing out. You can do if that's your thing, that's great, but you need to be even more focused to do that on a hyper scale. You know, you might be following an individual hair that goes from the follicle all the way through to how it ends on a fall of a piece of clothing or something like that. But you would need a very, very high resolution image to work from for that. And in this instance, for me, it's not about doing something that's hyper realistic. It's about getting a good representation of the image, because it's a collection of all of these things pulling together, all of these portraits, that creates the final artwork. So the relevance of having every specific hair drawn isn't that relevant to me for this artwork. It might be on other pieces, it might be a little bit less on others. And as I say, the abstract nature in which way you create things, like drawing shapes, tone, blocking, line, softness, all of those elements are quite abstract in their isolation, in their own individual parts. But as you build them together, can create something that's representational. Artistically, this is where you answer your own questions. What do you like? Is what do you want in your image? What is it you'd like to finish off in your picture? What are you really interested in? What captures your imagination? What processes do you like more than others? It may leave you with a slightly looser, more free, expressive way of creating your artwork. It can still be identifiable, but for example, more of an impressionistic, it might be just putting the marks down, leaving the tone just a little bit almost less is more. You allow the mediums to have an expression as well as the image. So if you think back to the way impressionists might work, and it might be just a quick flurry of a mark that gives you the information of, say, a Degas ballerina dress, or the line of the leg. It is just drawn in look so effortlessly, but it's a lot of practice and a lot of studies and all the workings out as to how to do that quick flurry of a mark. That's what you use your other paper for. That's what you might use your sketchbook for. So you build up those techniques and I'd say that artistic muscle memory as how to put those down confidently. You might have to draw them a lot prior, because often people just go, oh my god, that art is amazing, just walked up, did this, and it was done in no time at all, and it looks amazing. Yes, that artwork looks amazing, but you haven't seen the 10,000 artworks prior to that to get to that point. It takes time to build up, so don't try and rush it, just trying to analyze it. If you're doing a quick mark to suggest a flick of hair, how are you going to do that? Maybe you need to practice it a little bit first, or you need to ghost it. What I would say is a bit like a golfer doing a golf swing. You need to kind of, not drawing it on paper, but follow the line. If you're drawing with your arm, how that might actually work. To zoom out, because that won't make any sense. There you go. So let's say if you were following, say, a curve, I'm not putting my hand on the paper, but I can get the sensation of how that curve is going to work on my paper, and then go to my paper and then just mark it down, step back, analyze it. Was that right? Maybe the bottom half needs to move out a little bit. Go back to the bottom half, go back in, look at the bottom half, and then draw that in. And because you're almost taking the worry and fear out of it, and you're disengaging your brain from it, and you're going over the muscle memory of the physical action, you're more likely just to put that down in the right place. But you need to step back to analyze it first, to see, oh, is that correct? Does that need to move down? Does that move to the left or right? But as you do more of it, that becomes a lot more second nature and a lot easier, and it's a part of the process that is all the way through your artwork that you then even stop thinking about, and you're just going through the motions of doing it, and you can almost detach yourself and see your artwork develop in front of you as you're doing it. It's a weird kind of zen-like moment where you're drawing, but you're sitting back watching it, and it's like two parts of the process with your brain happening. You're working on something specific, but you're analyzing it as a whole as well at the same time. And if you think, oh my god, that just sounds like way on above my experience capabilities, it's the same as if you drive. Once you first get in, everything is clunky and mechanical, and you don't know where things are, and you've got to look at everything and mirrors, signals, maneuvers, and stuff like that. As you gain more experience, you don't have to look at the gear stick; it just goes into second gear. You don't have to think about pressing the clutch down; you just automatically do. When you're driving to begin with, you're concentrating on the road to stay in the middle of the white lines. When you've been doing it for a while, you've got a relationship and an understanding of where the car is and what you do with your hands to maneuver it, that you're not thinking about, I need to go to the left a little bit. What do I need to do? Move the steering wheel. Right, okay. Is that too much? Too little? The more experience you have, the easier it becomes, the less you have to think about the physicality of making the action. It's also almost automatic, and then you can actually sit back and just concentrate on the surroundings. You can concentrate on what's coming up on the head in the road. You can assess, oh, okay, I can see a small child up the road. I'm going to slow down, rather than getting to that part and then seeing a small child and then panicking and hitting the brake. It's the same with drawing. As you do more of it, you're able to assess the road ahead a little bit, and it's actually safer. So it's not that you get blasé with your techniques and you ignore some of the basics. They're very, very important. They stay with you, just like to be aware of when you're driving on the road. But occasionally that's when, if drawings do go wrong, is maybe where you've just got lost in the process and you're not looking at the physicality of the whole picture. You need to step back and review it. That's why taking a break now and again is an important thing, which I shall just do right now. Take a slip of coffee. So hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, I think there's a couple of less people around this week, but I know that people are watching this as we do the as sort of through the week. People sort of do a catch up on it and sort of contact me and lets me know what's going on, which is great. There we go. Okay, we get you back there. I was just checking the couple of messages online. So yeah, it's also the enjoyment of it. If you find that you are getting really frustrated with a picture, is do work on maybe another artwork as well at the same time, so you can bounce between the two. It helps keep your eyes refreshed. It gets you to see your work from a step back, as a different perspective on it. A lot of very good artists I know work on several works at the same time, not like literally the same time, but will have an artwork going, then they'll get it to a stage and they'll just set it down and they'll work on another one. And incredibly productive, and you're constantly going, how did you draw that amazing picture? And then next week you did another amazing picture. It's just that they're drawing or painting 5 or 6 along at the same time, and they just bounce between the one and the other. That then it looks like there's one finished, there's one finished, there's one finished, but they're also starting another one and starting another one. So it's like this, not a conveyor belt, because it sounds like a factory machine process, and I don't mean to sound like that. What I mean is they're more prolific, more productive, and they're much more relaxed with their artwork. They've got more control of it. It's kind of standing back gives you a sense of perspective over your artwork, and then you can start going, do you know what, I'm going to add more to this, I'm going to tweak this. And you can play with your experience as well. You're still trying to concentrate on all the lines and the shadows. That's cool. It's a good stage to be at, because you're starting to be aware of the lines and the shadows. Whereas before you'd just seen a face and not know how to draw it. Now you're aware that you can break things down. So that's actually a good stage, Desiree, that you're starting to see the subtle differences between shadows and lines. But the key is not to be overwhelmed by it, maybe to break the process down. Maybe to do that exercise with a little hole in the paper. Just see what the tone is, and that'll help you see what how dark a shadow is. And the lines, draw lightly, so you can adjust them if you need to. So nothing becomes too difficult. Look at it as a whole picture. Look at it as this part that you may be working on. Say the eye. What does that eye consist of? This eye actually only consists of a little dark area underneath here, and I've got this darker line which seems to go around a little bit. So I know I might need to lift some of this area off with an eraser. There's a little highlight between this dark line and your eyelid and the pupil, so I need to be aware that there's a dark, a light, and then the dark of your pupil. And it's those kind of steps to break down your image that you're working on into bite-sized chunks, so you can achieve those bite-sized chunks first, and then step back, review it. How do they fit together? And you might go, okay, that line's a little bit too long. I'll just dab it with a rubber, take it back a little bit. Oh, I've taken too much off, add a little bit on. And it's okay not to get right first time, but you've got a flexibility built into your art process that allows you to manipulate and move things around a little bit. That's good. Any news on the Saturday art classes? The real ones in the Oz Art Centre. Hopefully, I think they were talking about October time. Nothing specific just yet. They have to go and make sure everything is in place to keep you guys safe and themselves safe. So they need a process in which to do that. So they need to submit that first, and that needs to be agreed before they start. So it's like any place that is working with people coming into an environment that, because of COVID, everything is still clean and safe and usable for everybody. We've been going through a lot of those processes, so I'm just readjusting my seat. In school this week, working with the kids and how it functionally works, because you can write it down all on paper and then you functionally do it and go, okay, this one, maybe a one-way system you've got going in and out of the building means that you can't get to that classroom, so we need to change it a little bit. Or we need to physically tell the children to sanitize their hands every single time they come in the classroom, because we can't rely on the fact they've been told once and they'll just do it. So it could be the similar thing that I don't necessarily work for the council, so I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They just go, yeah, come in now. And I go, yay, drawing classes on. I just go in and deliver them. So yeah, as soon as I get more information on that, I'll post it up on my Facebook page as well. But I dare say, if you keep an eye out on their Facebook page, the Art Centre Facebook page, they will be announcing when the classes are going live, when people can sign up to them, and how they can do that as well. So fingers crossed that happens soon. As I say, when they do happen, I have a Saturday class and a Monday morning class. I'll be moving this to a slightly later time, because the drawing class is from 10:30 to 12:30 on a Saturday morning, and obviously I can't be in two places at the same time unless I took the cameras with me, and then I would have kind of doing a live demonstration and a live art class at the same time. I think would just blow my mind. It would be too much. Also, it wouldn't be fair to people in the class as well, because they need my attention. So yeah, it's a case of we were all kind of adjusting to the scenarios and the restrictions that we've got in place. In schools, we wear like a full face visor, and we've got masks on going through the corridor, things like that. And it may be that I can use my full face mask to deliver the classes, so people can basically see me. Because obviously, I've noticed as well, when you've got a mask on and it's slightly ruffled, it gets very hard to speak to a room full of people when they may not be able to hear you properly. So yeah, it's little things like that which how we can physically run the class as well. I think they're going to be isolating the tables, so there'll be one person per table, so you've got your own area. Obviously, because there is such a time period before the next class comes in, there's over 72 hours, everything will be sanitized, cleaned down, so there won't be a transference onto the next person using the table. I do have art books in my class, but it just means I won't be able to give you the art book. It means I'll be holding them and opening them up to a page, maybe, so only I have access to them. But if there's something in a textbook I want to show you, I can flick to it and show you to that way. Materials, obviously you're bringing your own materials, so there's no swapping pencils and lending each other rubbers and things like that, which is a frustration, because there's always a week where you forget a rubber or a pencil sharpener. It's a bit frustrating. So I think once you forget your stuff once, you never forget it again, type of thing. The restrictions might be in place. I say it's hard to know what they are until they come back to me and let me know. But yeah, there will be some slight restrictions in the class, but not to your process in drawing, and certainly not to the experience and knowledge I'll be able to deliver to you. There shouldn't be any restrictions in that whatsoever. but I am looking forward to getting back to a real life class as well. I am loving this. I do enjoy doing these live demos. It's starting to get a little bit easier, stage by stage. Yeah, but just means that we've all got to sort of learn a new skill and a new way of doing things a little bit, which is opening everybody up. So yeah, just noticed as I'm talking and drawing, I kind of notice my parts in the drawing as well that I want to kind of develop. So there's a darker shadow just here. If you saw that in the reference picture, and it just helps. It's just a fold in the material. It's quite subtle. And again, this is on the lighter side, but this area is a little bit darker here. There you go. You may have to take your beard off to wear a mask. I have got a mask that covers my beard. So no, I don't have to take my beard off. I've seen bigger beards with bigger masks on as well. But it's almost like a natural filter as well. The only problem is you get what they call a beard mask, where you've been wearing your mask for a long period of time of your beard, and you take your mask off and your beard is melded to this weird shape around your face, and constantly sort of trying to pull it back down into being normal beard shaped. Pitfalls of having a beard. I'm going to start looking out for tonal similarities in different areas. So it might be on different things, but I can look at how dark something is or how light something is, and how that darkness might appear in other areas of the picture. So where I was drawing this part of the chin coming around, it also flows. Ooh, that's cat knocking something over. It also flows down into the neck. So I want to continue that tone there, and where this line then disappears into this area isn't as dark as that, but as it comes out it blurs and slowly gets lighter and lighter and lighter. So I need to make the rest of this area appear that it's going into that area. So it's darkening this whole area down, but this is quite dark there, and out of that darkness it transfers into something that's slightly lighter, but there's a soft transition between the two. So I'm going over on that again, and I can follow the shape because it's moved down this way. There's a subtle darker line which comes down this way. And there's a sense of the collarbone just coming across this way a little bit. I know this area is darker. There's a dark area bit on this part of the cheek. Which comes all the way down. There's a very, very light, subtle highlight line just on this part of the chin, which I'm not going to put in straight away, but I'll actually use a reductive process for using that pencil eraser, the mono pencil eraser, and just lightly put that line in. It might be too light at the minute, but when I go back in and go back over it, I can blend that lightness in a little bit. So there's no, what we had there is a line of a pencil before. There's actually a highlight of a little bit of eraser just to take it off, and then because I've rubbed into this dark area, and rather than doing large sweeping marks now with the graphite, I'm just almost tickling the surface with the pencil, going very, very lightly. Probably see better if we work on there. I'm almost like make a little loop with the, if I exaggerate the mark, I'm almost making that sort of motion to lay the graphite down. So I'm just tickling the surface a little bit. It's really, really light. I could almost rest the pencil on the page and just move my hand rather than thinking about the pencil point and putting pressure on it. So it's about how you can build up the subtlety in how you lay pencil down. I'll switch this camera back on again for the, what was it, a third time already? There we go. Oh, there we go. There's too many buttons to click to get this done sort of so smooth that I could switch it back on without you guys noticing me stopping. So apologies for that. Hopefully it should be back up in your screens anytime soon. Didn't work. Ah, there it is. Okay. So yeah, relationships between shadows, how one shadow can almost fall into another space without a line being there. So looking at this area here, this is very much the same tone, but in here there's a subtle difference just around the tip of the chin. How that shadow then breaks across this surface. And shape. There's a small little bit of shadow here, which is just part of the jawline. So shadow more on this bit, which goes across almost, yeah, to there, and brings across the top of the cheek. So this whole area I think needs a bit more tone on it. And once you put more tone in a light area, you need to go back to the dark area and see how that affects that darkness. So if I lay more tone over this whole area here, I can see that this part here needs a bit more tone on it. This a little bit more of a shadow. And this side of the nose is darker as well. And as I darken that side of the nose, it disappears. So I need to put a little bit more dark on this part of the nose. And this is very relevant to this picture. And hopefully you're working on your own drawings as well. You'll start to see the subtleties in areas that need extra graphite and a little bit less graphite, or tone or chalk or whatever you're working on. And it's the balance between the two. All the while, keep in mind, if you're putting a mark down, say for example this mark here, it's in between these 2 points. How does that relate to your drawing? If that's the mark here, that's one side, and that space here is where the eyeliner is. In between those 2 points is where we get this mark. So you're using the drawing now to be a guide for proportions as well, how you place shadow shapes. You can draw all the shadow shapes out, which we initially did. As you start to build upon them tonally, some of those lines disappear, which means you need to establish where things start and stop again. I might, for example, just start to map in some of the shape of this hair. and it's lovely because it's like a layered effect of all these lovely sort of sweeping movements that I want to try and capture. And it comes to this lovely point of they kind of fall over the top of this eyebrow altogether, and they kind of meet up and make this lovely W shape that we had. But at this point it disappears into the hair a little bit, so there's no harsh line there. It kind of goes from the dark of the hair and then out, but the skin underneath is quite dark, so I'm going to tone over that whole area. Might go up with grade pencil actually. I think I've got B in this one. These pencils look very similar. I'll just show you, just to prove, because people go, it's the same pencil. I have two the same, but I've got one with a bit of tape around it, so I know that one is different than the other one. So I know which one's got darker graphite in it. So you can get different levels of graphite in these small propelling pencils, stick them in, you can put a bit of tape around them, mark out what's in them, so you always put B's in one or HB's in another, or 2B's or 4H's, whatever it is. You can get more expensive pencils like this, Pentel, called Graph Gear, and it has this little clicker on the side where you can grab hold of it and twist it around, and you can indicate different pencil grades that you put in there, which is great. But a bit of tape wrapped around pencil can sometimes help as well. In this one I've just got an H pencil, so it's very light, and the pencil itself is heavier, but it's longer. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's longer, so you can hold it further back. It's got a nicer grip on the front of it than these obviously cheaper ones, but this is £1 from a supermarket, and I think these are about £10 each. But these are going to last me a little bit longer. So it depends on what you want from your materials. If you're just starting out, don't go massively into the mega expensive stuff. Try them out, see how they fit you first, or how you explore them. And if you get really used to them and you want to, just a little bit more quality, that's when you can invest in newer tools. But these will last for a good while if you look after them. What you find is, because of the propelling bit that you click inside, it kind of pushes a rod up, and it's like a spring, and it opens up this little clamp, and it allows the pencil to flow through it when you want more pencil. And sometimes in the cheaper models that clamp doesn't open anymore, or something goes slightly wrong with the spring, and at that point they kind of useless. Whereas these ones, the mechanisms of a similar style, but they're much more durable, so they can last a bit longer. So sometimes to start off, these are fine. It's not going to break the bank for £1. But if you've got like 10 or 20 of these, 10 or 20, £10 is quite a lot to invest in propellant pencils. So don't rush to do that straight away. Try these out first. You can buy little boxes with some of these little tiny files of different leads that you can get, different grades. This is a 5H, and these are handy because obviously you're not they're all labelled on the side as to what grade of pencil they are. You can have that linked with one pencil, so you know that grade of pencil will always be with that one. You can then click your marker, or you can just get a bit of paper, like 5H on it, put it on your pencil, sellotape it up. It doesn't look as nice, but yeah, whatever best suits you. You can just work with normal pencils as well. The reason why I'm working with these propellant pencils a minute is because these are incredibly small portraits with a lot of subtlety in them, and just to have that consistency of edge on the pencil and refinement, I kind of feel that these are best suited to do the job for me. That's the reason why I'm using the propellant pencils. I might use a pencil sharpened down to do certain specific things, as well. Sometimes where you set your stall out as an artist can sometimes trip you up. So if you go, no, I will only use propelling pencils on my portraits, you suddenly go, I wish I had a big, large graphite block, but I've told everybody that this is my process, and therefore I can't. You're letting the process dictate you as the artist. Don't do that. Don't fall in that trap. Let's try and find a process that best suits what you want, and that means changing occasionally. So if you've built into your drawing process or your painting style the flexibility to explore mark making and how you might render or lay things down, that'll give you a greater flexibility in your artwork than if you go, oh no, my process or my style is this, and it could be quite debilitating sometimes when your drawing style or way of processing something needs to change to suit the artwork that you want to create. Notice this shadow goes right way over this eyebrow and over this eyelid, sorry, not eyebrow. This is where the eyebrow is. And what I'm doing is with my eyes is flicking between the one and the reference, the drawing, the reference drawing and reference, and my eyes are moving constantly backwards and forwards. I'm looking more at shape rather than the thing. I'm looking at how that space moves around this way. This might need to come down a little bit. Little line, which means I need to get in there with a rubber in a second. Just refine that mark. I'm also looking at this negative space of this kind of curved line or shape of the eyelid itself. I'm noticing on the eyebrow there's a darker area bit here, it gets lighter and it gets darker, much more refined here. So when I've put that mark in, it looks quite heavy. I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to go back in there and refine it. And as I lay more graphite over the top of it, it'll soften some of the edges down. I did have those. I think I have. Let me change my glasses. Oh, not those ones, because they're sunglasses. No point wearing sunglasses. Not going to help. These are my drawing glasses. So these ones, my everyday glasses. These ones, drawing glasses. It's just going to help me see. That's better. The drawing a little bit. So you can see I'm actually dabbing the rubber on rather than rubbing out furiously. I'm using this as a drawing tool at this point, just sculpting the graphite that I have written down, applied down there already. Just to soften the edges of little elements of it, and again take that out a little bit, just a bit more width to this point. Kind of just tickling the surface with it. If I can see any strong highlights, say for the pupils or maybe lighter areas of the white. The white of the eye isn't white, but on the tone I've got here, there might be a lighter part of it. So I'm just going to dab a little element of lightness to it. It just helps me keep the form of the things so they don't start to migrate. I notice that this eyeliner needs to move up a little bit. Move that line and just reset where that mark is. And then pull this down. Now in contrast, it can make the eye look a hell of a lot darker, but this is only where we've been drawing or concentrate on the shadows around the eye. As you build up the shadows around the rest of the face as well, that'll kind of blend together. It kind of needs to be more cohesive and come together. If I just work on this one eye and draw how dark it needs to be and all the little elements to it, and not concentrate on the rest of the face, this will look incredibly dark. But as I build up the tonal aspects to the rest of the face, it will kind of start to come apart of it rather than looking separate. What else you put there? God bless the person who invented the kneadable eraser. Yeah, I mean, you can still use the kneadable eraser as well, and I do still use it. But there is such a great flexibility in having control over the very tip of your rubber. But the kneadable eraser has some unique qualities that this can't do. You can rip and pull kneadable erasers and drag that through to create lovely textures that you could spend hours trying to draw in the textures with your kneadable eraser, where it's just a one flurry or mark. A bit like that impressionism that we were talking about earlier. To get the impression of something, you kind of need to play around with your mark making experience. And I would suggest, do that. Grab another piece of paper, just play around with making marks on it. What can your pencil do? Look at textures of things and go, what is that texture that I'm looking at? If I was just creating that texture, not the thing itself, but it's just a texture of that, how could I do that in pencil? And experiment and play. On your page, the majority of the marks you make will be not right for that experiment to achieve that texture that you were going for. But in the process, you actually develop 19 different textures that you then have an arsenal that you can dip into when you're doing another portrait. You might go, or another picture, you might go, oh, I remember doing something like this, which was very similar to the texture that I'm looking at, and I'm just going to do that again and apply it. So even if the 19 marks that you make on your test page are wrong, they're not all to be forgotten. They're all experiences that you can go, okay, well, it didn't suit this that I was working on, but it might suit something else later on. So keep hold of those experimental pages. That's why a lot of people do these in their sketchbooks, so they can just flick through and you can make little notations beside them about how you did them. That if you look at a portrait and go, I'm not too sure how to get that texture, but I'm sure I've done something like that before. You flick through your sketchbook and go, oh right, yeah, that's how I did it. I wonder if I can do that again, and then you try and repeat the process. So it's just about having a little bit more forethought and control over the style of marks that you're putting out down. It's not just any old application of pencil, it might be a specific kind. So you need to kind of take that into context. I'm going to darken this hair down as well. Let's darken this hair down. This whole bit here is dark. Over the top of the eye. It kind of breaks up a little bit, where you can see a little bit of the forehead through the hair. This is just the fringe. How high that comes up before it gets really dark, so this whole area is dark. Again, I'm just applying this graphite really lightly. So drawing hair, again, just breaking shapes down into what's dark and light. Going over it, and then so going over it and over it doesn't mean to say you have to put the first layer down is going to take longer than the second layer. The second layer is going to take longer than the third layer. The third layer will take longer than. So as you go through it, it feels like, oh, I don't have to do the whole thing, but each layer is going to put a little bit of maybe darkness down in certain areas. Then you might review it, refine, put a little bit of lights in somewhere, go back over it. But it'll get quicker each layer that you do, because you're not trying to cover the entire thing. And in that layering process, you create the lovely textures and shapes that you need to give the illusion of hair. At no point am I doing strands of hair. Those little tiny marks, there may be wisps of one or two individual hairs as an accentuation of the flow of hair, coming in at the end. They don't start how you draw hair off. They're kind of the flurry at the end of it. Just looking at the edge of this is quite soft, the edge of this curve of the hair. And it's slightly sharper here. So I've moved up the pencil just to give myself a little bit of control, but I'm still drawing lightly. And even this bit, like it seem quite random and go, oh well, nobody's got to really know whether that curve of the hair is in the right place or not. It's not necessarily about that. I'm looking at form. This curve of the hair of the fringe follows around to where the top of the head would be. There's a curve. It also gives me distance away from the eye. So it all adds to the proportion. So if I just did like a massive curve, it would throw everything else out. So again, a bit like doing the shoulders and things, and the materials of the shape of shadows over the form of the body. All of those things are in support of the portrait. They're not something people identify straight away. They're not something people directly look at first thing. But if they're out, it throws everything else out as well. So you can have the best drawn features of a face, eyes, nose, ears, mouth. People go, oh, they're really good. But there'll be something slightly off with things that are not in proportion. So if you've got the body too big or too small, it can throw the size of the head out. So the size of the head might be right. If you make the shoulders too small, the head looks too big. Making the shoulders too big makes the head look too small, but the proportions on the head itself might be perfect. Again, there may be a vehicle that you're doing that on purpose. So there's a lady called, I can't remember her name, she used to paint portraits back in the 70s, and they're called Big Eyes, where all the paintings had these massive, huge eyes in them, and I'm sure you might have seen them. There was a film made of it called Big Eyes as well, well worth checking out. It's a lovely film. But she's doing that on purpose. Her artistic thing was accentuating that. So a concept around it was about that. Or if you think about manga itself, manga have these massive eyes, tiny noses, tiny little mouths, little tiny slight chins, quite flicky hair. There's a trope or a style that starts to surround the production of their artwork that has a certain their own artwork have certain rules for their portraiture, but they stick within them to make them look right for their particular artwork. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. They're curating their art world basically. But if you're trying to do something representational, you're trying to stick to the elements of the truth of this particular image. You can see how subtle this shading is when we go from a dark area to a light area. When it goes down here, it gets a little bit lighter. And I can accentuate that by going back in with a sort of pencil eraser and drawing some light lines through that. I think this line is above. hairline. It's just above this eyebrow. I'm just going to darken this whole area down, I think. Just put a layer of graphite all over this. So if you're going a little bit quiet there, you get lost into doing something, you kind of drift off into just the action of what you're doing. So it doesn't make for great streaming. Somebody's just doing their thing and not talking. I don't know, maybe you'd be happy about that. I'm noticing how this comes up here. So maybe my curve was coming further and further down. I need to move it further and further back up. So again, all of these things are lightly put down, but as you build them up, we're starting to get the sense of where these two curves are going towards each other. This one might slightly come across a little bit more, curve in a little bit more this way. Control this edge. So I can curve it around a little bit more. Got little wisps inside of here, but I'm not going to fiddle around with them too much. It's how this hair then tonally all sort of comes together. Just adding a little bit of pressure to make that a little bit darker. Even just darkening that tone down on the right hand side of the head. It's not perfect yet, and I know there's some marks there. Maybe we've gone over the edge, which I can pull back. You can start to see how the form or the shape of the hair moves around and over the top, and then how that will affect this area here. So this needs to be a lot darker as the forehead. There's one wisp of hair that kind of comes through this space and almost in between this curve of hair and where this eyebrow is. There's one wisp of hair, so I'm going to put that soft marking, but how high this hairline goes up. I'll take that back out. Again, this might be too light at the moment. But it's that readjustment. I'm looking at shapes of the dark tones and shapes of the highlighted bits in between the dark tones, but how much darker this whole area is compared to this side of the face. So it's a kind of, although this is a light area and I'm looking at the lights in it, it's actually darker than this area, so I need to go back in and put graphite on it. It's about toning it down and readjusting. Again, if I make it that dark, that line disappears, so I have to go back in and maybe just highlight that line a little bit more, and how that shape cascades over this space here, and how this eyelid then is a little bit more toned. As I've done that, we've lost the shape of the eyebrow itself, so I need to go back in and do that. You can soften it down sometimes with a little brush. Some of the marks you've put in, just to help blend them together a little bit. So I'm doing here is just manipulating the graphite that's already down on the portrait itself, just softening some of it and pulling it together. I can see that bottom lip obviously needs darkening down. I can give this whole area where I put graphite down there a little kind of blending together. Because blending stubs can be quite hard, I find. Camera's gone. There we go. Yeah, blending stubs can be quite hard. It's not to say don't use them. Do use them if they're going to work for you. But you can use a brush that does the same thing, which is a lot more subtle. It may mean you have to go back over it and put another layer back in. However, you've got more control over it as well, I think. Screen. That's what I want. There. Sorry about this. It seems to have more today for some reason. I don't quite know why. I'll shoot you. There it is. I wish there was a quick way of doing this, but it doesn't seem to be. A lot of clicking on the mouse, unfortunately. Nope, for some reason it's not going up at all. It's one of these things with this camera. I have got no idea of control over it whatsoever. Some weeks I hardly have to do this once, some weeks I have to do it 4 or 5 times, and there is no rhyme or reason about it. It's just computer programming, which is beyond me. It's just an app. So apologies for that. Unfortunately, I've disappeared out of your top right hand corner. I can't get me back, so I'll have to kind of stick to it like this. I might have to kind of zoom out and say hello to you this way. So do that before we go. We've got about 15 minutes left on this. Again, I haven't got very far. Well, I got further than you would necessarily believe, because I'm starting to really see tone now in the portrait. And I can start to link things together quicker because I can see where forms and shadows are, and darkening things down helps me re-establish certain areas. I could even put a little bit of tone into where we start to see pupils and irises and things, just to help me give me some context now into shape and forms that I'm starting to build up. What I'm not now doing is drawing eyes and pupils. I'm starting to layer in where certain areas of shadows pull together to create the illusion of those things like the eyes, the nose, the ears, the mouth. You've had the shapes and basic placements of them. I'm just refining the edges and tones of them to give me a sense of form and how the face kind of fills over the edge. One more attempt. Getting this camera back up, I think. Yay, there we are. Ah, good. See, tenacity. Keep going until you get there, Lee. There you go. So yeah, I'll be back on the screen now. So you can see there, I quickly threw up the chat bar that I work with, so I get to see mine in a slightly different context. And what I'm going to do, let's show you a wee test. I'm going to click you back onto. See if you're paying attention as well. I'm going to click back onto the screen. Not that one. That one. I'm going to take. Zoom in a little bit. Now they're not identical, obviously. Not the mix, not finished. I'm going to give you a few seconds. I'm just going to nip off a quick second, and I want you to just pick areas that you'd work on next. Spend 5 minutes looking at both of them. Just identify what areas you would work on next. Okay, but I want you to spend 5 minutes just purely looking at it, not doing anything else. Bear with me 1 second, we'll be back in 5 minutes. What did you see yourself? What areas would you start to work on now? What is it about a portrait that is frustrating you that you would want to change now? Spend a few minutes, just give me 1 or 2 indications what they might be. The reason why I'm saying it is you'll all come at this in a slightly different way. There'll be elements of this which is starting to frustrate you that in my drawing that you would want to change, or areas that you've seen that I haven't approached yet. And we all come at this from slightly different angles. We all see things that we just want to get that sorted out first, and then we can move on to this bit. That's what makes you an individual artist, and there is no process or how to for that. It is something you're going to develop, and there'll be areas that I can see in this that I want to try and achieve, but there'll be other elements of it that you want to get sorted out. I see this a lot in demonstrations that I do when people are going, he's missed that bit, he's missed that bit, he's missed that bit, he hasn't done that bit yet, and they're concentrating on a different area, and that's okay. That is something, as you're doing your artwork, follow what is of interest to you on that point. Finish an area that you're kind of concentrating on. You know you're going to sort this out later. For somebody else, they might look at that and go, I need to get that sorted out so I can move on to this. That's fine. You'll all come at things a slightly different way. I've done it myself, watching demonstrations of really good artists going, he hasn't noticed that bit yet, he hasn't noticed this bit yet, he hasn't changed that bit yet. We're picking not faults, but we're identifying areas of development from a different perspective. And as you do your artwork, you'll do them your way. So this is just the process that I'm working through on this particular portrait from my perspective. But from your perspective, there's an awful lot in that picture that I'm sure you'll want to change, and you're kind of sticking in your mind's eye. You continue with the hair over the left, and another layer on the face, and then Desiree's top. Great. So I might go into this and go, yeah, I need to more concentrate down here. I know definitely on the right hand side, if I darken this area down, I get more form of the shape of the hair. I could follow around and up, and then maybe down, and then play around with the tones coming down to the neck, and then the top that way. But then we might go, you know, if I get this tone coming up from this way and around the neck and the shape of the face this way, I could work up from that way. Whichever the way best suits you in your working, stick with it. What I wouldn't do is panic and try and do it all at the same time and all over the place, and you're not really concentrating in one particular area. All of these areas now at this stage need to start to blend and move together cohesively, and you can move around your drawing to do that. So that's fine. For me, the shadow on the right of the portrait is being knocked out by the lightness of the left of the face. Perfect. Guys, you're getting it. This is how it works. I want you to now take that knowledge and put it into your own artwork. How these things follow on, how they blend into each other, how they have an effect. If you put a layer here, you've got to change something there. It's not that you've got something wrong elsewhere. It's just that it's a development process that you need your drawings to adjust as you do them. That it's not about putting the perfect mark and tone down in one go and going, I've finished. It's about building your portraits up. It's about adding layers to it, about putting the textures in the right places, and then being the right shapes to follow the form of your head, or the form of a top, or a tree in a field. Whatever it is you're drawing, you can use this process to build your artwork up, and you are in control of it. And as I say, we all come from this from a slightly different perspective. We all see things which are visually interesting to us, but that's what makes you an individual artist. That's what people will look at your artwork and be attracted to, is your thought process. It's really subconscious and it's really subtle, but it comes out through your drawing. So my drawings will never look like yours, and yours will never look like mine. And that's what's interesting about art to me. If we all did this one picture and all had a carbon copy of this picture, technically it might be good, but artistically it becomes a bit flat, because we all become a photocopier of the same image, and that's not what's interesting about art. The interesting thing comes from your unique perspective, how you see things, what is visually of interest for you, what it is you want to put down. And those things are important, so you can own them, where you can say, no, I am in control of what it is I'm doing, and I know this is more interesting to me, and this is why I'm concentrating on my portraits this way. It's the more you do, the more you build that artistic language up, the more you feel more comfortable in what you're doing with your artwork and in control of it. You may identify areas that you are curating still, developing experience wise and knowledge wise and techniques, but you'll get to a stage where you'll kind of you'll get satisfied with doing a likeness, but you'll want to start adding other elements to it as well, and you can build upon that. So yeah, great. I'm glad you can see things from slightly different perspectives, and I'm glad you can see things that this isn't perfect by any means, that it's heading in the right direction, but there's elements there that I would need to keep on going with, to move around and to change. But as I say, when you're watching a demonstration, sometimes you start to see things from your own perspective and can't quite see why the artist hasn't done that bit yet, because it's glaringly obviously it needs to change, and it's frustrating to you. If you have an element in your drawing that is frustrating, change it. Don't think that you have to follow the portrait the way I'm doing it, as in I'm going around this side of the face. You might go, this is really bugging me, or the tone in the background is way too light, that is really bugging me, and I need to get that sorted out first. Do that, but take that knowledge now, look at the drawing that you're working on, and spend that 5 minutes looking at your drawing, not drawing on it, but looking at your drawing and seeing what it is you'd like to adjust. Then when you go back to your drawing, concentrate on those areas, adjust them. Take a 5-minute break, assess it, look at it. Do I need to make things lighter, darker? Do I need to shift things up or down? And because you're drawing in a light approach, you've got the flexibility in which to do that. You know, you're not going in with a heavy dark straight away. You're building the layers up of tone. So if the shape of the hair needs to move up or down or left or right, you're not trying to rub out a very dark heavy layer of graphite from the page and then putting it somewhere else where it might leave a ghost mark on a lighter background. And that just takes a little bit of practice and going over and doing it. But I'm so pleased you did that. Spend 5 minutes now looking at your drawing and seeing your drawing from a different perspective. Try and assess it. Try and see what it is you need to work on next to get your drawing to be the image that you want it to be. So hopefully that makes sense. I said, look, I'm still not finished this portrait. I will endeavour. I've got another busy week, but I will endeavour to get this portrait done so that we are moving on to the next one. Hopefully again next week what we'll be working on is a very simple process of about how to draw an eye, a nose, mouth. Now I know I don't necessarily concentrate on those things, but it's more about the structures of them. Somebody asked for, and I thought it might be of benefit, just so we can apply the knowledge of the structures of these things to the portraits that we're drawing. Often though, I will say, whenever we are working from a reference, some of those ideals go out the window because that's not what is represented in the picture that we've got. You know, lighting might be different, so you might not see some of the structure of the nose that we have in our head about how it should be. But certainly breaking it down into simple forms and shapes and things like that might be of help. So I thought we'd do a little bit of an exercise like that and see how that goes, and yeah, go from there. I hope that's okay for you. If there is anything else you would like me to cover, you want me to work on, if you have any questions, or you maybe a challenge or two might be quite good, let me know. I might do a crossover after I've done Leslie's portrait, is crossover and do some more manual drawing, so it'll be more of my own artwork on there as well. But yeah, if there's anything else you want me to do, let me know and we'll have a go at doing it. Be a bit of fun. It's coming up to 1 o'clock. 2 hours goes way too quick on a Saturday morning, because it really does feel like I've only just sat down and I haven't drunk all my coffee yet, although it's gone cold. Cat's thankfully quietened down halfway through. And at least I get to say goodbye to you properly on here without the camera switching off. So yeah, guys, it's been great. It's been way too quick. 2 hours just is not a long enough time. But again, if you to think about how much time I actually spend talking, how much time I actually spend drawing, and how much time over the last couple of weeks we've had to do this, or been like 3 weeks, you'll find that it's not been actually that long drawing this portrait out. If you could edit out me chatting and just how much time I spent with my pencil on the page over the last 3 weeks, there's an awful lot of drawing there in a very short period of time. It's not about the speed, it's about thinking your way through it, breaking it down. So hopefully you get something out of it. Desiree, Michael, thank you for being here. If it wasn't for you, it would be just me and a voice in a room by myself. I know there are other people watching, and so hopefully over the coming weeks you can feel comfortable about typing and having a message as well. The community is there for you. The more people chatting, the better the experience for everybody, I think. So listen, thank you very much, and guys, I shall see you again same time, 11 o'clock GMT, over here on YouTube. I will post links over on my Facebook page. If you want to be part of this project, you can send me a message on my Lee Boyd Artist Facebook page and send me a little selfie, a little bit of description about yourself and where you're from and things like that, and you'll be part of this artwork as well. Okay guys,